Welcome to Better Sex, where you get the information and inspiration to create and enjoy your best possible sex life. Join your host, sex therapist Jessa Zimmerman, as she brings you expert guests, helpful tips, knowledge, and strategies to improve your intimate relationships. And now, your host, Jessa Zimmerman.
Hey everybody, it's Jessa back for another episode of the Better Sex Podcast. Thank you so much for being with me and spending a little bit of time. You know, part of what I'm doing with this podcast, besides trying to bring you some really helpful information and maybe inspiration, is to start a conversation to help you specifically improve your sex life with your partner if you're in a relationship. And a necessary part of that process is being able to talk about sex, right? To be able to talk about your sex life in general in a larger way, and also specifically about sex itself, what you want, what you don't want, what your limits are, what your desires are. And I have developed a free guide to help you have some of those initial conversations about wanting to improve your sex life. That's probably, I think it's about 8 pages actually, full of some information and guidance and communication tips. And I am just happy to share it with you. If you would like a copy, you can go to bettersexpodcast.com/guide and you'll be able to get your free download. Today's episode is, yay, another one of those personal stories. This is a series I do. You can always look for it in the list of episodes. They're definitely marked personal story, where somebody comes on the show and talks about their own sex life, basically some of the problems they've encountered, some of the successes, and I guess I'd say transformations they may have had. I think that these are super relatable and important. So, you know, even if you don't relate with each individual story, I mean, of course you won't. There are things to learn. There are things to feel inspired by. And who knows, maybe one of these really resonates with some of the same struggles or experiences that you've had. My guest today, who I'm calling Matty, is here to talk about her journey as an Orthodox Jew in her marriage. She talks about sort of the primacy of the Jewish home, which is rooted in intimacy between the couple, and family life is sort of the center of Orthodox Jewish life. And, you know, she talks about going into marriage virgins, totally unexperienced, coming up with some of the struggles that happen in living this life of ritual and tradition, but also, you know, some of the huge benefits and payoffs from this. It's really fascinating. You know, not being Orthodox Jewish myself, a lot of this was new information, but I really found it inspiring. I'm thinking about ways I might apply this in my own relationship to some degree. You'll know more if you listen through. So anyway, hope you enjoy the show. So Matty, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. This is like my first podcast, live.
Congratulations.
Very exciting. Very exciting. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So why don't you just talk a little bit about who you are and why you wanted to come on the show?
Okay. So I'm 43 years old. I was born in Peoria, Illinois, but when I was very young, we moved to Israel. I was brought up in a very Orthodox Jewish home, very traditional, following the Bible to the T, going to very religious schools. The culture was very strict.
Okay.
And everything was about the religion. And when I got married, I realized that there's so much more to life than just the religion. Like there's also us. Which
were you still in Israel at that point?
So when I got married, I moved to America.
Okay.
I met an American guy and I moved to America.
Okay.
And I think it was just like naive. It wasn't the cultural fault. It was me. Like I just didn't think out of the box. That's all I knew. But when you get married, suddenly there's a whole new set of rules that comes to the family as an Orthodox Jew.
Okay.
And it's a very different topic it's a topic that most people are like wait, what? How does it work? I get so many questions about it. And I work in the big world and I meet so many people from different cultures. And when I do bring up the topic of intimacy, sex, relationship, the
Right.
Jewish home, actually, like the Jewish home is the title of intimacy in our home. That's
Huh.
how it's so a part of our culture.
Okay.
Um, so I find that there's a lot of questions and they're like, really? Like, how does that work? And it just gets them to pause and think because it's a very interesting topic. So I thought that, like, since you talk about it,
I do.
it would be a very big eye opening for the world.
Okay. So maybe, I mean, do you want to start with what some of these rules are that you discovered once you got married?
It wasn't that I discovered. I knew about a lot of them before, but until you experience it, it's very different. So
Right.
I'll give you a little bit of a background about a general Orthodox person, general. And I'm
Okay.
talking from my experience. People should, I don't want to offend anybody. This is my experience as an
Right.
Orthodox Jew.
Yeah.
So usually it's very separate, no co-ed schools. When they're ultra Orthodox, you go to a separate school, boys and girls,
Hmm.
and there's no intimacy
Okay.
between male and female beforehand. The first real intimacy is once you get married.
Okay.
So that means you can have a boyfriend, but if you're ultra orthodox, you really don't have any touch, feel, kissing, hugging, anything like that. It's
Right.
very separate.
Okay.
And when you get married, you're suddenly jumping into bed and you're his best friend and you're having sex and everything is allowed. But what is different by us is that there's the on time and the off time. Have you ever heard of this?
I haven't. So describe that for me.
Okay, so basically, when a woman is during her menstrual cycle,
Ah,
she
right.
is not allowed to touch her husband. And when I say she's not allowed to touch, she's literally not allowed to touch.
Okay.
And some go, there's different stages of how extreme they go, but I also keep, you're not allowed to pass something from hand to hand. I have to put something down. So let's say I want to give him a car keys, I put it down.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is during my cycle, and
Okay.
then once my cycle is done, I have to wait 7 days and count 7 days that I'm clean, and then I go to pure water in
Okay.
order to become pure. And that night, and it has to be done at night, and that night, it's as if we're reunited again.
Wow. So
So
you're talking about
basically,
almost 2 weeks every month. I mean, 12 to 14
every
days,
month,
something like that, where
exactly,
you're not having any contact.
exactly,
Wow.
exactly, unless you're pregnant or after birth.
Yeah, right. Unless you're not getting your period, right? For whatever.
Right,
Like
right.
women that don't
So
menstruate for some reason
exactly.
or something like that, they don't have this restriction, right?
Right,
Okay.
right, right. So just imagine you're newly married.
Yeah.
It's your first real intimacy with your husband, right? It's your
Yeah.
first time because you're engaged, you know him, you're dating him. There's also the different rules of how long you should date and the different cultures of the Orthodox world. How long should it be? Should it be six weeks? Should it be two days? It depends. It really depends on what they're accustomed to.
Right.
But sometimes you could, like in my case, I'm going to speak only for my case. I dated my husband for 6 months and
Okay.
I was engaged for 2 months. And then we got married and it was the first time we had sex.
Right. Right. Okay.
And it was the first real intimacy. And then, and then you have to separate
Yeah. Wow.
right away, right away.
So
But
how was that for
it
you?
was hard. It was hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's very hard. But the upside is that you have this renewal every month.
Yeah.
It's literally like falling in love over and over and over again.
Isn't that
Now,
interesting? Yeah. Because,
yeah,
because of that sort of scarcity that's imposed. I mean, that's at least how I think of it, right? Like sometimes people in a
right,
long distance relationship or whatever's happening that they can't access each other all the time. It does keep that, uh,
right, excitement.
yeah, that interest going. Right.
And it's a big preparation day. Like the day you go to the pure water, it's called the mikvah. It's
Uh
called the
huh.
mikvah. It's pure water. there's a lot of preparation that goes on, and there's like the build up. It's like a wedding night. Oh my God, I'm getting married
Yeah.
tonight.
The ritual around that. Yeah.
Yeah, the ritual. And so the beauty of it is that these 2 weeks, it's your own week. It's for you. Like
Hmm.
it's for the woman to be with herself, to be okay. It's her boundaries. It's her time.
Hmm.
And it also, hopefully, the goal is, what I think the goal of it was to increase communication verbally. That not
Oh,
everything should be resolved through sex and hugging and kissing and making up.
okay.
That
So
there's
there's no restriction on how much you're communicating or interacting as long as you're not
no, no, no,
physically
no.
touching.
Not the
Okay.
opposite. The opposite. They encourage communication. They encourage speaking. They encourage activities together
Wow.
in order to build the relationship in a soul way, in a couple way,
Yeah.
in a meaningful way.
Interesting. Okay.
But I must say, not everybody's very good at it. And then it could get difficult. No, it could get difficult if somebody is not a good communicator, so they go into a shell. And
Yeah.
you're basically like punished for 2 weeks,
Oh,
and that happens. It could happen, and it happens often until they learn and hope. The goal is that couples get married and they really get counseling beforehand about how to interact in a marriage and how to become partners and how to become one. And with good guidance, it really could be the most beautiful thing.
is
Really, the most beautiful thing.
is that common in the Orthodox environment to get that kind of counseling? Is that part of the preparation for marriage? That's
So yeah, so there's different levels. So the must is that the should I call it men, women, whatever, that sex goes to a teacher.
okay.
Each one separately goes to that to their teacher, and they
Okay.
get in depth for where they're holding in life, for what they need.
Okay.
Everybody's in a different stage, in a different environment, in a different awareness. And sometimes they go as a couple, and
Oh,
sometimes they
okay.
go as a couple afterwards. Like, you're a sex therapist, right?
Right. Right.
So there are many sex therapists in our community that post like a year or two, even after a few months, or even right off the beginning. And sometimes, unfortunately, it's after 20 years.
Yeah. Well,
Unfortunately.
I mean, same things happens in my own practice, right? Some people are coming in
Right.
very proactively or very quickly, and sometimes it's 20 years later, which is better than not at all.
Right,
Right.
right. But by us, it's more taboo to talk about it. It's not
Yeah.
something that I'll go to my friend and I'll say, oh, you know what? What happens with this? And it's a very hush hush, pure, private, sacred topic.
Okay. But you
So you
have
would have a
there's
mentor.
yeah, but there are sex therapists in your community. Well, and
Yes,
outside, I
absolutely.
suppose, right? Like seems to me this is an honored, important part of the relationship that's supported within.
Very a fundamental point in our relationship. Fundamental.
Yeah.
And it's the foundation of our home. And they
Yeah.
and when in the Bible and when we deep dive into the topic, they specify how intimacy is so important.
Hmm.
And they don't call it sex, they actually call it intimacy,
Yeah.
because they feel like it's a deeper, it's not just sex.
It's not just a
It's
physical
literally
act, right?
right. It's a connection of a soul becoming one.
Right. Now, did you run into any obstacles or issues, showing up on basically getting married and all of a sudden now you've got you've got the ability to have sex and intimacy with your husband? Was that, or did you feel
Very much,
prepared? Yeah.
very much. No, no, it was very strange. First of all, you're coming from completely being disconnected to completely being exposed.
Hmm.
And I worked with a therapist for years, not a sex therapist, but my own therapist, not even revealing my intimacy, but revealing who I am, my shield
Right.
of who I am as a human,
Yeah.
because I was so trained to be modest, to be covered, to be separated, that once you're exposed, it's so extreme. How do you go overnight to be so? And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So what else does the audience, the listeners need to know about the framework in an Orthodox home, or the rules, or the culture around sex and intimacy?
Okay, so it depends on how orthodox you are, but a lot of people won't even show affection in public. because it's so sacred. It's only for the bedroom.
Okay.
It's only for the bedroom. That's not the case with us. We're very affectionate in public, and it's very important for me, for my children. We have 5 children, and I want them to see it.
Okay. Yeah.
It's very, very important to me, for me to show them that that's part of the family.
Right.
One of my biggest issues, and I don't think I ever overcame it, and I think I still struggle. But as an Orthodox Jew, I take the good with the not so good, with the struggles, and I hope one day I will understand. After birth, a woman needs to separate. It's usually 6 weeks. It's until she gets really clean plus 7 days. So
Okay.
what is it? 6 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever the usual is. Now
Yeah.
it's
Well, it varies. Yeah. Yeah.
right. So think about it. It's a very vulnerable time. It's a
Yeah.
very special time. It's a time that you want to be together, not
Yeah.
sexually, but physically. And
Yeah.
you can't. And you can't.
Wow. Can you
Yeah.
hand the baby to your husband? Or do you have to
So
put the
many
baby
people
down like
don't.
carrying?
So it's such a good question. I can't believe that you're asking that, because it's really a question, and there's a
Yeah.
debate. I know that my siblings don't. They
Wow.
don't hand the
Okay.
baby, but I do.
Okay.
I do. They say that a live object is not an object. So a live thing you can pass. That's
Okay.
the theory behind it.
Right. But there's still a
Uh,
question about, wow, what a level of
yeah.
separation.
And the beds have to be separated. You can't have one bed. You have to
Wow.
have 2 beds. So you have to physically separate the beds.
In these periods of time.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yes. So like it is kind of a way of living.
Yes.
For me, it consumes my life. It
Yeah.
really consumes my on and off. And think about it. You want to go on vacation. Oh, when is my cycle? Let's make sure that I'm going on vacation at the right time.
Wow. And not everybody's so predictable, right? Like not everybody's on
No,
a
exactly.
or
So right. So one of my issues were that I had early ovarian failure. And when I'm saying early, it was early, mid-30s.
Okay.
And I didn't know what it was. I just like randomly started spotting, and even spotting is not allowed. Like you
Oh
spot,
gosh.
done, you're done.
Yeah.
So you have to start the counting. So obviously the different spotting, different colors, and there's rabbis and female rabbis that judge the color, and they can determine if it is or isn't. You can get checked by a nurse. But let's say you determine that it's real blood from a cycle or
Right.
whatever, from spotting from a uterus.
Yeah.
So it was a big problem because I felt like I was always on the no. And it
So
was really, really hard for me.
I bet out of a month, how many days would that mean? I mean, how often did you get to
For
actually
me,
get
it
or
was
yeah.
not even 10.
Wow.
Can you
Wow.
imagine?
I
It
cannot.
was hard. It was hard. So what happens? So you try different birth controls, and you try different things that will postpone it, but then
Right.
it interacts with yourself. Who wants to be on hormones their whole life? No one wants
Right.
to be on hormones.
Right.
And that's what my challenge was, that I tried different hormones, and it really didn't do well with me. Really,
Yeah.
really didn't do well with me. And it was a huge, huge challenge for me. Huge.
I assume it was a challenge for your husband as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But
Now,
he's more exactly.
in,
Because they're more physical. They need the touch, they need the feel, they need the connection. But my husband happens to be very good at this, which is unique for men.
okay. So
Like
sometimes some
he
men
could put
struggle
it
with
on the
this.
shelf. Right.
So
And
let
I
me ask you
really
this.
think that there is tons of struggles in our community with it.
Right. This isn't maybe a naive question, but are the men allowed to masturbate in this period where you're separate or even
You're
together?
never allowed to.
Never. Okay.
Never.
Okay. So
It's funny because I just had this conversation with my husband yesterday,
yeah.
because I was thinking, like, I don't know, like, it's such a hard topic because my kids are getting older. My son is 16, and I'm like, what is going to be with him? Like, how is it even physically possible? How is it physically possible to go so long without masturbation?
Yeah.
I don't understand. I'm not a male, so I don't understand. But it's like, to me, it's and also in a way, like, it's unhealthy.
Uh,
Like there's so much release of pleasure and excitement that comes
yeah.
out of it. So if we oppress it, what happened? What
Well, I
happens
mean,
to these males?
to a non-Orthodox Jew, right? To me, I'm very pro-masturbation and the health benefits and the emotional and psychological, like in general, I believe masturbation is super healthy. But of course, I can see the role of restrictions as an act of devotion, of faith, like you're saying, your life becomes about living with these patterns and rituals, But I'd also have
Right.
to imagine that while it's totally forbidden, that doesn't mean nobody's doing it, right?
Oh, I'm right. I
Yeah.
can, it's just like anything else.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like gossip. You're not allowed to gossip. Do people not gossip? I'm sure people do, but I also know that probably comes with a lot of guilt.
Right. Guilt and
I
shame if you're
a lot of guilt and shame, and I know
yeah.
that I'm sure there are plenty that don't. I'm
Yeah.
sure plenty
Right.
that don't, and I just I don't know how it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I probably should look into it more and learn a little bit more. But my husband was trying to say that it's like like anything that we overcome.
Yeah.
Like a vegan person won't eat meat, and it just becomes something that they overcome.
Right.
Not everybody hates meat that becomes vegan. Some people become vegan and they still love meat, but they overcome that urge of eating meat.
Right.
I know it's a little bit different, but it's about overcoming this desire. I need it now.
Yeah.
That like boundaries.
Right.
Everything is about boundaries, the right time, the right place for everything.
Right. Hey, it's Jessa. I'm taking a little break in the middle of the show to let you know about another free resource that I have for you if you're interested. I have written up what I consider my top 10 sex tips. And these are not positions and it's not new equipment like a trapeze. These are basically competencies that I think are the most important for couples to accept and develop and practice and perfect or improve on to really create the best possible sex life with your partner. So this is my take from my years of practice with hundreds and hundreds of couples, helping them, that have put together in a free download for you. If you would like to get this, you can go to bettersexpodcast.com/tips. You'll get to download the guide and hopefully improve your sex life as you go. Back to the show. So in these months where you would maybe have 10 days together, I assume, like you were saying, you and your husband were communicating more. Was this
much more?
Is this something you could support each other in? I mean, would you sit there and say, "Wow, I miss you. I wish we could talk"?
100%. For me, yes. Not everybody. Yeah. Again,
right.
Not everyone. Some people they dread this time. I used to dread it just because I felt so alone and so I missed him so much.
Right.
And it wasn't that I missed the sex so much. Like I missed that, like, just cuddle me, just like hang out with me, like let's watch a movie together, hand in hand.
Right.
But it's definitely something that it's a muscle. It's a muscle that you have to get used to. But for us, listen, we have a very good communication. We happen to have a very good communication.
Right.
Our open communication is one of our strong points in our marriage. And no matter what comes along, we dissect it. So I'll say to him, you know what? I'm really having a hard month and I'm really missing you and I'm hating this and what can you do? So he'll write me a little note in the morning, go prepare me a coffee. I'll say, only 5 days left or something like that to celebrate.
Yeah, I can see how that keeps that anticipation for that, that reunion. It's
a real reunion.
Yeah.
And whatever goes on in anybody else's bedroom goes on also in the Jewish home. Like anything is allowed. Anything.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you that if there were restrictions on sexual behaviors that you had or anything.
Yeah. So the rule is whatever pleasures the woman. Yeah.
I think the rest of the world could learn something from that.
No, but it's really like, and he has to ask permission.
Still after all these years.
Yes. It's all about pleasuring the woman, and the woman must be pleasured. Should I say that all the men obey to that? Just like masturbation, some do and some don't.
Yeah.
But from the Bible, from the Talmudic, from the spiritual part, The woman must be pleasured.
I did hear, and I don't know if this is correct or not, but I heard that that was actually grounds for, I don't know if you'd call it an annulment or ending a marriage if that wasn't happening.
I guess, you know what? I don't know the rules that well enough, but I guess that definitely sounds like if it's on purpose, if the man is not seeing her, I guess that's a ground for divorce no matter what.
Yeah.
Religious, no religious, Jews, not, like, that's a ground.
Yeah.
You're not seeing her, you're not seeing what she needs, and being selfish, that's a ground for divorce, I think,
Right.
no matter what, right?
Right. Are there other aspects of your life together where your pleasure or your desires are put first? Or is that solely in the realm of intimacy?
What a good question. What a good question. I'm sure, like, a woman's role in the family is she's like the queen.
Yeah. Okay.
Every Friday night, do you know about the Shabbat rules, like the Shabbat, like the weekend tradition by the Orthodox Jews?
I know a little bit about it, right?
Okay, so
Not
on the weekend, on the it starts from Friday night to Saturday dark, like
okay.
from sunset Friday
Right.
till nightfall on Saturday night. Did I
Okay.
say Friday?
Yeah. Friday night to Saturday night, right?
Yeah. So it's like 26 hours, and there's no electronics, no cooking. It's just family time, and there's gatherings of meals, one at Friday night and one Saturday morning, and you start off the Friday night gathering by the man singing to the woman a song all about how special she is.
Hmm.
Every Friday night in every home.
Wow.
That's how they start off, because we really believe that the Jewish home is based on the woman.
Yeah. Yeah. And the primacy of that in your life, it sounds like the Jewish home, like being the foundation of everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's very important.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not everybody goes by it, and there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain and misunderstood. And I think it's not spoken about enough how important it is, because it's so taboo and it's such a sensitive
Yeah.
topic. It's not spoken about. But I think lately it's becoming a little bit more aware, and more gatherings about intimacy in the Jewish home, how to increase the intimacy to a level of soul connection. What is intimacy? What is real sex in a Jewish home?
Right.
Because there are so many marriages that broke down. They were keeping everything, but not keeping the real core.
Right. Right. So how did you come to learn your own pleasure that your husband was supposed to fulfill? Right? Because you're coming at this with no sexual experience at all. So it seems
Oh my God.
seems to me there would have been a little bit of a journey figuring out
Right.
your
Right.
own pleasure.
A little bit, a lot of it. Yeah. So thank God I have sisters that are phenomenal,
Okay.
phenomenal. And we talk about it openly,
Okay.
and which is unique. Not
Yeah.
everybody's like that. A
Right.
mother that is above and beyond special, above
Okay.
and beyond. And there's nothing that we cannot ask her. And
Okay.
she's very open about her experience and, like, what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I went to mentors. Like, when I had a real question, I went to a mentor, or I read about it, or I asked about it. There's a lot. I'm still learning,
Yeah.
still learning.
Well, yeah.
17 years later, still learning, you
Well,
know?
partly because we're always changing, right? You've had 5 babies. We get older. Like, it's
Right.
what was great
Right.
when we were 20,
Time,
whatever.
exactly. And also our needs change. I think we
Yes.
evolve
Yes.
and we change, and we have different needs of connection, and in different levels and different times. I used to cry sometimes after an orgasm. I used to
Yeah.
break down and cry from, like, a deep connection. Like, I
Yeah.
said, I felt your soul.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I didn't feel it, I'm like, oh no, something's wrong.
Oh,
And he actually taught me that it's really not wrong. It's fine. You can have everything. Like, I felt like I was damaged. Oh no, what happened? Are we getting divorced? Like, is something in our way? Like, I didn't know that there's different stages. I
yeah.
thought it would have to be like one. Literally, we're like in the moment and you feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's more variety than that for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So what else? You said people have so many questions, and like But you also made it sound like sex and intimacy is pretty private and nobody's talking about it. So do people come
Yeah,
to
you won't go to a coffee shop and hear about it. No,
Right.
you
Okay.
will not. And you will not, usually, unless you have a very close friend, they won't know when you're on and off. Like they won't
Right.
know when you're during your cycle. Usually it's a very private time.
Okay.
So that, what else is taboo? It's also taboo what you do in your bedroom.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
kind of like taboo. You won't discuss it really with your friend.
Oh,
It's
right. So
not
everything,
usual.
there's nothing off limits, but you wouldn't be talking about this with other people, right? That's what
Right,
by taboo.
right,
Okay.
right. Is it like that also in the
Well, I
non-Orthodox
mean,
world?
probably. I mean, I think some people feel it as strongly as a taboo, and then just lots of people are just uncomfortable, right? Like there's so few people talk about sex or feel like that's a conversation they
Still,
have. Oh yeah,
still.
yeah. I mean, some people do, but lots of people that come to my office, they would never tell their friends. Their friends don't realize they might be struggling in the bedroom, or there's no one to ask about it. They're not going to talk to their mom. They're not going to talk to their friends, but they may come in and see a therapist.
Mm.
Yeah.
So in the Orthodox world, if they go to speak to a therapist, I would think they were doing it as a last resort. Like,
Mm.
I think, like, you know what? I should ask my friend that's a sex therapist. At what stage does she see but they're usually coming broken already, shattered.
Yeah. I
Not
mean,
like,
that's
oh,
yeah.
does is that normal?
That's not uncommon in the
Oh, okay.
non-orthodox world too, right? That people don't necessarily reach out to help for help until they like really have to, or it's gotten, you know,
Which is so sad
it
because
is.
I
It
like
is.
I said to my husband, like, you would think that we if somebody wants to become a chef, they go to school to learn from the smallest thing about how an egg is broken down, and like, to how to beat it, how to make a scrambled egg, how to fold it into different cakes and stuff like that. But when it comes to the most important thing in life, which is sex, building a family, intimacy, love,
Yeah.
there's no big, like, education about it.
No, there certainly is not. That's a
And
big
it's so
can of worms.
sad.
It is
It's
sad.
so sad
But
because that's the foundation of building the next generation or building ourselves as human beings.
now, but you made it sound like the Orthodox Jews have a little bit more support for that with these mentors and teachers, and that
Definitely,
you have a little bit
definitely. But
more.
if I go to a mentor, yeah. So if I go to a mentor, I probably won't post it on Facebook. Oh, by the way, I found this great. But
Right.
I will maybe tell one or two of my friends that are also in the growth experience of, like,
Right.
that journey. I'll tell them, yeah. But they're definitely available, and they're becoming more and more and more available just because there are so many divorces
Yeah.
that we're not accustomed to in our world,
Yeah.
and they believe that it's coming from the foundation
Right.
of the
So
lack of proper intimacy.
yeah. So I have another question for you. You've got 5 kids. What is your individual approach to talking about sex and intimacy with them? I know you said like you guys are affectionate on purpose because you want them to see that.
Right.
But what are you doing about equipping your children to have a rich Jewish home?
Okay. So we're very open about it. And
Okay.
people think that we're a little bit, like, crazy, but I also judge it by the child, like how advanced they are, where they
Mhm.
are in life, like how much they can. But no matter what they ask, I answer the truth. There's
Okay.
no, yeah, there's no diverting.
Yeah.
If I want to say at about 8 or 9, I tell them the whole thing,
Okay.
everything that a mommy and a dad. I start off talking to them about that there's more than kissing and hugging,
Right.
and I bring it into, this is how we also create children. That mommies don't just have a belly with a baby inside. There's a way that it's created. It's a part of daddy. So what? It's a part of daddy? How is that? And then I go into the whole thing, and their first reaction is like, oh my god, what? And they
Right.
freak out, like, what? And then, like, you see their gears turning in their mind, and like, oh my god, what are my parents doing? They're so ugly, they're so dirty, and then we bring the beautiful part of it, like, and I give them time to just be with it because
Yeah.
it's really shocking. And then we talk about it, we laugh about it, but we warn our children in general about safety very early on.
Yeah.
Like when they're 6. When they're 6, we talk about pedophiles because they go to sleepaway camps.
Ah,
So my husband gives them a full exposure about what goes on and what the danger is. And when their mind is a little bit more open, we talk about sex.
and is this pretty common in an Orthodox home? No, you're exceptional.
Ooh. I mean, it's becoming a little bit more. There are books even out there. There's some books out there, how to talk to your children about sex, how to talk to them about intimacy. I think in the more open-minded Orthodox world, by the time a girl gets her period, for sure she should know what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be just, oh, you get your cycle and that's who you are. There's a
Right.
reason why.
Yeah.
But the ultra Orthodox, I remember I grew up with my one of my closest friends was super Hasidic, like super. She came from one of 15 kids,
Wow.
and she got engaged when she was 16.
Hmm.
Now, the way she got engaged was basically they informed her that she's marrying this guy from a nice family. They
Right.
met one time, and then the next time they met was at the wedding a year later.
Yeah.
And I remember her coming to school a few months into school during her engagement time, and she looked awful. And I said to her, "What's wrong?" And she's like, "I can't talk about it. I can't talk about it." I said, "What's wrong?" Now, I knew about sex by then,
Right.
like I was, even though I didn't find out as early as I told my children, but I found out earlier. And she said to me, "I just found out what happens the night of our wedding."
Mm.
And she was like nauseated. She was like, "I don't know if I could do this. This is horrible." It's that shock.
Hmm.
And it's really a hard concept because you hardly know this person, and then you're getting naked with him and you're in bed and you're making love, which I doubt it's love in the first
Well,
few
yeah,
times
and
because it's impossible.
right, and she's had no chance to go and shift from, oh, this weird sort of physical act to, oh, wait, I can wrap my mind around this and look forward to it,
Right,
right? Like it's just
right,
a
right. She
shocking
was
when she's had
literally,
no way to conceive of that before that, right?
exactly. It
Yeah,
was such a shock. She was like in mourning. And I remember it so vividly, and I said, I will never do that to my children. Like, I want them to be so comfortable and so understand it. And that's why we talk about it a lot. We really do.
yeah, yeah. So we have time for maybe one more idea that you want to share around, this. I know it's a rich topic, but
I think what I came to terms with, that no matter if you're Orthodox or religious, no matter what culture you come from, there's no rule. There's no rules about what's good or bad because it depends on the two individuals.
okay,
You can have the best rules in the book and you have two terrible individuals and it's going to make a disaster. And you
yeah,
have no rules and you have two amazing people and it can be a beautiful journey of love and connection.
yeah,
I do think that it works for us. It worked nicely. It was very challenging at times, but it did form a somewhat connection. I did not like the whole process of going to the holy water and all that. I actually felt very, I don't know what the word is, like unpure, that I needed to go purify. And I never understood that concept, and I probably needed to go deep dive into it. It was very hard for me. Like,
yeah,
I'm the one that's not pure now, and I have to purify myself. Like, where's the fairness over here?
yeah, yeah,
So that was my battle, and I still battle it.
yeah,
But in the general, I think the pro of reuniting really is something so special for me.
yeah.
For me, like there's something so unique and so beautiful about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really struck by the idea of the making sure you're attending to other parts of your relationship in that off time, or I don't know
Right.
if you call that on or off, but when you're separated.
I just called it when I'm
Okay.
separate. Exactly.
And then that reunification, just that does seem really, really like a lovely, powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite
Yeah.
sure how non-orthodox people might think about implementing that, or if they're curious. But it sounds like a nice thing to introduce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be introduced and it doesn't have to be so extreme.
Right.
I like the idea, like after many years of thinking about it, I realized that like from a God oriented person, that I believe in God and I believe that everything is for a reason, and we might not understand the reason, and I try to understand. I think that for me, I think God created it to protect me as a woman, that when I'm in my cycle, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Like, don't even come close to me. Let me be in my time. And we're also moody.
Yeah.
And we also like just give me my space. And I think in a way that's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing, this little view into your Jewish.
I hope it was exciting and enlightening and something that people would like to hear.
I think they will. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Okay, nice to meet you. Thanks a lot.
You've been listening to Better Sex. Please visit our website, bettersexpodcast.com, for show notes and additional episodes.
And that's a wrap for today. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are enjoying the podcast, if some of this material resonates with you and you would like to make a difference and make sure that this keeps coming out in the world once a week, ongoing, there are a couple things you could do to show your appreciation. The first would be to go to iTunes and rate and review the show. That really helps us be found by new listeners when you review the show on iTunes. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/iTunes. The other thing I want to invite you to consider is becoming a Patreon. For a small monthly pledge, you get some benefits. So for $2 a month, you get advance access to every single episode. For $5 a month, you get a chapter of my upcoming new book. And for $10 a month, I host quarterly get-to-know-you and question-and-answer chats over the web, and you get invited to that. I would love to have your membership in that, become part of the Better Sex family. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/Patreon, which is Patreon. Again, thanks for listening. I'm glad you're here. Feel free to comment, ask questions, get in touch. I'd love to hear from listeners. Thanks.